Hey friends, welcome back to Artists of the Way. I'm John, the host. Today, I'm very excited to welcome on Yohan Daza to the podcast. Yohan is an artist and mental health activist in the Grand Rapids area. He's worked at Wedgewood Christian Services, has a degree from Kendall College, and I was introduced to his stuff from The Stray, the local coffee shop that I go to. He has a really cool art style that kind of blends this mixture of street art and graphic novel art and classical art. Really great color usage. I'm a big fan of it. And then he also does a lot of work for children, has written and self-published a couple of children's books that deal with mental health awareness or bullying. Just a lot of really great work. He was really lovely to talk to. We have some examples of his art that he brought in that we're able to show you guys, and some really great insights and recommendations for artists. So I'm super glad you guys are here to join us, listen to this discussion, and hope you guys enjoy it. So how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me, John. It's a beautiful day.
Yep.
A beautiful Saturday. I haven't done a podcast for years, so
yeah. You did a little bit of your own podcast at some point, is that right?
In the beginning, with my friend Jeff Villy.
Okay.
When we started doing an anti-bullying program many years ago, when all this anti-bullying stuff started, we were one of the few first ones here around the area.
Okay, that's cool.
Even before a lot of the popular ones that you see nowadays.
Yeah.
We started some of those, and now he is a motivational speaker. That's his full-time job, and I was the artist behind that. And we did some podcast. Without knowing what we were doing, but
that's fine. That's how podcasting goes.
And and I think there was a few podcasts back then. So it was fun. The editing part for me was difficult because
editing's the boring part, and then you're listening back to your own conversation again. Yeah.
So hopefully this one is not going to be as bad that we have to cut.
For sure. So there's a couple questions I always ask everybody at the start of each episode. My first one is, how is God using art in your life right now?
That's a good question, and I'm glad that you asked, because sometimes we forget. We have that 8 to 5 job. Yeah. And just a few months ago, I was probably too busy with work. Yeah. And when I was a state of mind that you don't feel like doing anything unless somebody asks you that question. Right. And then you realize, actually I've been doing some stuff. And for the last few months, I've been pushing to do more art. And some of the things I've been doing is, I do children books, illustration. I like to paint. But I've been trying to figure it out every year. I try to figure out a way to have a message with my art. I do a lot of art. It's just for my own, like my own pleasure. Yeah. Just because I like to draw, I like to paint. But at the same time, I always trying to find how am I going to use this for God? Yeah. Because He gave us the gift, so we have to use it for Him too. So, lately, and I brought one of the t-shirts here. Yeah. I always done t-shirt design. I have never printed my own. I always, design it. Yeah. I will say every year I will have a new one. And this time I was at church. Okay. During the service, and the pastor was talking about, when you feel tired, physically and mentally. And I think this year I've been feeling mentally tired. I work from home. Yeah. I don't get to see a lot of people, and I work on the phone all day long in the computer. Yep. It's just that mentally tired. Yeah. It's completely different than physical tired. I experienced both. Yeah. Maybe when I was younger, I was very tired doing like the heavy work, but mentally affects me way more. Yeah. So, in one of the verses, and he mentioned the verses on the t-shirt. I don't know if you want to...
I'll hold it up. So if you're on the video, you can see a sample here of the shirt.
Yeah. So it's in English and Spanish. Yeah. It's Nehemiah 6:9. Well, in its paraphrase, it's not the full verse, but that was the line, God strengthened my hand. So in Spanish also, it says, Dios fortalece mis manos. Yeah. So that's kind of like when you feel that tired, like physical, mentally, that you need to hear that God understand that.
Yeah.
And that he can help you during that moment. So when the pastor mentioned this, like right away I saw that in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's like, maybe I can make that for the church, to help the church. But at the same time, when we can wear it, and you never know, you might be walking around the store and somebody might see that verse.
Yeah.
And that one might make their day. Maybe you're not going to have the conversation, but they will read that and say, yeah, that's how I'm feeling right now. It just needs to be acknowledged. Sometimes, we don't have the solution for things. But to feel that you're being acknowledged and God understand that, it's pretty big. Like for me, especially working from home, you don't have the interaction. Like you asked me, do you want to do this virtually in person? Like in person. Because everything I do is virtual. And you lose that connection with people. And, sometimes you need to hear that or see it. So my idea with that t-shirt is like, I'm making it for my church, but I want to be able to give it to other people. So they might be walking on the street. They might be walking in the store. You don't have to say anything. They might be able to see it. So it might help that little bit of that healing moment, that we're having that bad day. We have good days and bad days. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. But there's a lot of other things. But that's one of the things is trying to figure out an easy way to communicate with people. For me, like art, graphic design, I can communicate that way. That's the way I communicate with people.
No, I love that. And I love I feel like just the idea of like being able to put the art out there on a t-shirt is just not something I would have thought of, but then it can just, I feel like it, oh gosh, see my brain's falling apart and the words aren't coming. Like the strength of art is really in, like you said, there's not always a solution, but it can just be that little seed or that little step towards being heard and being seen for healing. And I know, like I saw on your Instagram page the shirt, and that, like you, I work from home half the time that I work, and I'm on phones and chats a lot, so I'm talking to people all the time, and so I totally get that mentally tired thing. And then it's like, oh, well, I have a podcast going. When we're in the midst of Godspell, it's like, well, I have this consistent other artistic thing that requires a lot from me mentally. And so I really relate with that idea of, I don't have the strength, God be my strength. I need you to help me float along here.
And that's the thing. Sometimes, maybe the beginning of COVID, that's when I started working from home. I was having a lot of like physical issues. Where to a point I was having a hard time working, and I don't know how I was doing the work. And when I look back, it's like it's just God keeping me there. Like you need the job, you need to work, and I just kept pushing. But at the same time, it's just not me pushing. There's that hand that's pushing you. Sometimes people say you just keep pushing forward, but who's pushing you forward? That's the biggest thing. If you, especially when you're working from home, you feel alone. Even though you might see your wife, kids. I have dogs. It's those 8 hours that you feel kind of alone. Because you're not having that physical, personal interaction. I don't know. It's important to feel that push. And a lot of my art, even this one, you see hands. That one again. This one is an older one, and this one is more related to mental health. When I was working for Wedgewood Christian Services, I worked there for over 20 years with kids at risk, like young kids and also like teenagers. And I mean, this one is a representation of that, and also my own representation. There's a big story behind this, but that's God's hand grabbing you from the water. A lot of people will think, oh, is that, like Jesus grabbing Peter from the water? Similar. When I created, I wasn't even thinking about that. And that's it. That's the amazing thing about art. Sometimes you create stuff, and then people find meaning to it. And you're like, oh. You're like, I didn't think about that. This was my idea, but then like this, find your reason to live. There's so many people that they have their own interpretation. That's a beautiful thing about art. And then you can use that to communicate. But this one has to do with me almost drowning when I was a kid.
Wow.
And I was born in South America in Chile. You went to the beach with my family. My uncle was there, and we got into the water in the ocean.
Yeah.
Red flags were there. And the idea was like we're just gonna get into the water up to the knee. We're right, and I remember that we were just kids. I can't remember how old I was, maybe 10, 12.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, a little bit more to the waist. And you don't know about like the undertow, the currents and all that stuff. And suddenly we're like up to the neck.
Yeah.
And I was with my uncle. He was close by, and he's like, okay, we need to get out.
Yeah.
This is not good. And he's a strong swimmer. I was not a strong swimmer. And then, you start feeling like it's pulling you into the ocean, pulling to the ocean. Then the waves are a little bigger than you think. And then, I start going underwater.
Yeah.
There was a moment that I was underwater thinking, this is it.
Yeah.
Because I was not a strong swimmer. My uncle was like, he knew he can get out. But he waited next to me.
Yeah.
Because he knew I couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. But the weird thing is like I was underwater, but I was not that afraid like I thought I was going to be. And I just started praying.
Yeah.
Underwater. And it's like, if you want to take me quick.
Yeah.
Because drowning is probably the worst thing. So just take me quick. But if you want to save me, do it now. Right there, I felt the water just... It was me and my uncle just right by the shore. And it was super quick. Now, I didn't know how long we were in the water.
Yeah.
But I could feel like there was something that was taking me out of the water.
Yeah.
And that's what it represents here. Now my uncle stayed with me there. My dad was by the shore. He didn't know how to swim, so he was freaking out.
Oh man, yeah.
My mom was crying, and she thought I was already dead because they couldn't see you because the waves were going like this.
Yeah.
So you couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
They couldn't see me at all. And then I was suddenly there.
Yeah.
And after that, it's like, oh my goodness. It's like I was just super young. I was already playing at church, but it's like that day. It's like I remember I don't know if it was the next day, but that week I brought my electric guitar and went to church. Like, okay, I'm gonna dedicate my music and continue my work because you took me out of the water. So it was kind of like a promise to God. It's like I have to use my art, and that time was music.
Yeah,
I was not an artist yet. I was a musician, and I made that promise. So. And as I got older, that changed more into art.
Yeah.
But that's what this represents. So this one is going back to like something super personal.
Yeah.
Then now working with kids, at Wedgewood, I used to work at Wedgewood. That's how it feels, depression. It feels like drowning.
Yeah.
And, when you don't work with that group of people, or you don't group in that environment, it's hard to understand depression.
Yeah.
But that's how it feels like. And, I got to see that like almost every day. I think we all go through depression, but that's one of the feelings in talking to kids and teenagers, like that's how they feel. They feel like they're drowning completely. But one of the things is like you gotta be willing to reach out, with your hand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's going to be somebody also willing to grab that hand. So that's what this means. So, there's a lot of different meanings to this one. You can reach out to God, but you also got to be willing to take the hand from somebody else too.
Yeah.
Because God could be using somebody else to reach out to you,
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's this one. We had a little, I don't want to call it campaign, but between my friend, I created this t-shirt, then I made one of my first book, and it was stories of different people telling their reason to live.
Okay. Yeah.
So hearing stories from other people, and I did our prize with this.
Okay.
So that's kind of the things that I like to do.
Yeah.
But it's not like I plan it. It's just kind of like
it kind of the inspiration hits you, and God arranges things.
And It's one of the things is from all the people, from all the Christians and non-Christian, they tell you you just gotta listen to that voice sometimes. You just gotta act on it.
Yeah.
And not just like, okay, I have this idea, but I'm not gonna do anything about it. So sometimes you just gotta get a, comfortable position. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to do something about it. It's, we're not trying to be famous or anything like that. It's just like, how can I communicate this message? How can I be part of that little bit of healing?
Yeah.
Not an expert in anything. But one of the things is like, yeah, we can all be part of that little bit of healing, a little bit, and we have to act on it. So
yeah. What was it that, because mental health awareness is a big part of your art and things that you platform, I suppose is the word for it. So what was it that first made you passionate about that?
So working out Wedgewood Christian Services, at the beginning I was working with teenagers, and I don't want to use the word, well, it was more like the delinquent part.
Okay, yeah.
So that was a little bit different. But then I started working with a different type of population. There was a group of young kids. They were, they didn't have families, and they were being bullied. I also work in another program where they dealt with suicide ideation. So I was working on those programs.
Yeah.
And that's when I think I became more passionate about it, because we have great therapists. They start teaching us about that. The other program, not so much, but this one, but there was one young kid that I remember. He was probably 8. He had a lot of different kind of issues, but we were just playing basketball. He liked to skateboard a lot, so we would go outside and kind of skateboard together. We shoot hoops together, and he just asked me the question out of the blue. It's like, why do people hate me so much? And then he also said, why my parents hate me? And it just kind of struck me. Like, how can a kid say that, especially about their parents? These were adopted parents. And just kind of like, I didn't know what to say to the kid, and it's one of those things. I didn't give him like a straight answer because I didn't have a straight answer. So we started working on it, and we kept playing, during the week. And one of the things we started joking around was about Bigfoot. And I try to use the analogy of Bigfoot, why he gets... We just made some jokes like, what if Bigfoot went to school and how he would get bullied because he's so big. He can't pronounce his words because he's Bigfoot.
Right.
So he started laughing, and so we just started kind of like playing around with the whole idea of Bigfoot, how he gets bullied, and then he started talking about how he gets bullied. Yeah. I didn't have a plan or anything about that, but that day, I think it was the same week, I talked to my friend Jeff, and we were talking about we wanted to do something related to bullying. This idea came out, and we just started talking, and he started like researching, and we came out with this book that took like 2 years.
I'll show on the camera as well.
Bigfoot Gets Bullied, and he did a great job researching like how to deal with that, because when a kid asks you that question, it's like, why do my parents hate me, or why people hate me, and why am I getting bullied at school? And one of the things that we started learning little by little is how to cope with that. A lot of people say, well, tell your parents you're getting bullied. Well, he was saying his parents hate him. Tell your teachers. The teachers, sometimes they don't have the answers. So we have to teach kids how to cope and give them the skills how to cope with that. Because a lot of times they're gonna get bullied. Adults are not gonna be around. So that's one of the things that we start working on this book is like, how do we teach kids to cope with that? Give them the tools. One of the things that I learned working with kids is, like you like to do, to practice by acting it out. If you practice acting it out, you get more comfortable. So if they start picking on you, making fun of you, and we're just practicing, and you practice what to say back. without being mean, you learn how to respond in a positive way.
Yeah.
So that whole practicing is just like theater kind of way. So that's kind of like what this book is about. It's like you practice. The more you practice, you get better at it. We don't teach kids at school like how to deal with bullying.
Yeah.
They just have plans. It's like tell your teacher, do this, tell your parents. But I think some of the things that we're missing in schools and parents sometimes it's like you have to teach your kids how to deal with it. It's part of life. It's not gonna go away.
Yeah.
So you have to teach kids how to defend themselves without using aggression, without being physical.
Yeah.
So you have to, it's one of the things that you learn. It's a good skill even for an adult. How to deal at work with bullies.
Yeah.
Or how to deal with somebody who, is being aggressive at work. Same principles. So if you practice those kind of things,
yeah,
you get better at it. And then, you feel more comfortable and then you can deal with that. And one of the things is like in this book, right at the end, we have steps. They're very simple steps. Let me go to that page. And, it says step 1, you don't get upset. That's the first thing because that's what the bully wants you to get upset.
Yep.
Which is really hard because we all get upset.
Yep.
As an adult, we can say that to a kid. It's like, somebody, you're driving, somebody just not following the rules. You get upset. This is really hard. But you have to practice how do you control yourself. So as an adult, we also have to practice with a kid. And, it says when others are being mean, don't get upset. Be calm on the outside and strong in the inside. So you have to learn how to do that by practicing, and there's other things. Step 2, treat your enemy like a friend. Now, maybe we don't want to use that word enemy anymore, but treat others like a friend, even if they're being mean to you,
Yeah.
And this is coming, you can find this in the Bible.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking.
So there's nothing new about this.
Right.
It's the golden rule pretty much. Jesus taught the golden rule. Gandhi taught the golden rule.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King. So basically, this book is it's the golden rule.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to teach. But the golden rule is not as simple as say practice the golden rule. No, you have to practice.
Right.
It's still hard for me. I have to practice. I work from home, customer service. You really have to practice.
Yeah.
But
you have a lot of opportunities to practice.
Right. And that's the thing is like I use these skills in customer service and it works. You can turn a negative call into a positive call. And also you learn how to set boundaries too.
Yep.
Which is the biggest thing. It's like how you set boundaries.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I went off track with
you're
that.
Good. No, that's good. What's different, if anything is different in your process? Because this and Louis the Little Pirate, and you do things that are aimed towards children, and then you also have other works of art that are more, I don't know, general. Is there a difference in your process or what your goals are with those? Like, do you notice differences in how you work with each?
I think my mindset's completely different.
Yeah.
As an adult, there's a lot more mature subject. Maybe I get into more of the dark parts of life.
Yeah.
Which I'm more careful with children's,
Yeah.
When I work, I try to do children's books. This is taking me back when I was a kid. I like kind of like a lot of the imagination things.
Yeah.
Be playful, imagination. And what I try to do with like children's books is to give that little spark so kids can use imagination.
Yeah.
For adults, it's more like let's look into more of the dark stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of like serious stuff. So it's completely different. I also like to do art just for the beauty of it.
Right.
So, a lot of the artists, sometimes like what inspire you? It's like it's just beautiful. Sometimes, but sometimes we go into other parts where it's like we're trying to show other part of life. Especially with adult stuff.
Yeah.
which we have good days and bad days, and I like to show both.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different approach, and I think that my mind is completely different when I'm working on children books. It's almost like taking me back when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So every time I'm working on kid stuff, it's almost like me when I was 10 or 12. And when I'm working on more adult stuff, it's just me now, like in life. So it's kind of interesting because I think our mind kind of goes back and forth. I don't think we ever change. Like if you look back when you were a kid, you're kind of still the same.
Yeah.
But not really at the same time. Like you can go back, it's like, yeah, I mean, I still feel the same way. But it's interesting, and this is my own personal, I don't know about other artists, but I think my mind goes back. It's like, this is me when I was 10. Luis, a little part is about foster homes, but a lot of the games and playful stuff here is stuff that I used to like play pretend.
Yeah.
I did that all the time. Stuff that I did with my daughter, like, trying to find treasures and things like that, So going back when I was 10 or going back when my daughter was little.
Yeah.
So I think our minds just kind of like go back and forth, like in time almost. But so it's an interesting process. But I did that with art and music. I usually kind of, if I'm working on a subject, I kind of like to get soaked in that subject.
Yeah.
So, if I'm doing skateboard, for giving an example, I try to get soaked on that. Like I will ride maybe like longboard. I will look at some skateboard videos. I will look at skateboards. I will look at the art. So I'll try to get soaked with that moment during those weeks. And then if I'm working on children books, I'll be looking at children books. It's almost like you get to get yourself completely soaked on that,
Yeah.
That's my process. I need to kind of like feel it in a way.
Yeah.
But it's not like one day I'm working on this and the next day I'm working on the next. I spend weeks on one subject, one state of mind. Almost like actors.
Yeah.
If you're
going to play. Yeah.
If you're gonna play a role, you stay with that role for a while, and then if you play another role, you get into that role for a while too.
Yeah.
And I think I do the same as an artist. So, I did it the same with music too. So if I will write composition, I will stay with that state of mind for a while, because I need to like understand myself what I'm doing.
Right.
Most artists, we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
People think it's like, oh, how can you come up with those ideas? I have no idea.
Yep.
I have no clue where they come from. And that's when people, ask you that question, like, how do you know God is real? That's how I know. Because I don't know where that comes from.
Yeah.
There's so much beauty in the world. There's so much beauty in art that it's like I don't have a clue. I can look at some of my art. I have no idea how I did it. I don't know where the idea came from. And then there's something pushing you to do it.
Yeah.
Something divine. And that's that gift that God is giving you. So
just kind of embracing the mystery of that and giving it space to breathe and develop.
That's the thing. It's like you have to let it breathe.
Yeah.
That's when art becomes real. That's why I don't do a lot of graphic design. For me, graphic design is more like it's work. Yeah. It's just like, oh, here's a logo.
Yeah.
Here it is. There's nothing behind it.
Right.
Art is alive. It has to breathe.
Yeah.
So, and it has to grow too. So sometimes I can, even at home I will paint a canvas, just the background, and just let it sit in the living room until I get an idea. Yeah. I don't have white canvas. What I do is I grab a canvas, I start mixing some colors, I'll make a background, and then I will stare at it, the color, for even a week sometime until something, and then like, there it is. But yeah, it is kind of interesting. Or sometimes we'll draw something and it won't be unfinished, but it'll be sitting there where I can look at it for a week. Yeah. Until I can finish it. Yeah. But sometimes it's never done. So
I love that. I feel like I think that's something I've been discovering is this idea of like, it's okay to kind of let it go and let things inside of you work themselves out.
Yeah.
And it's so counter to the culture we're in, where it's like, you've got to hurry up and do this thing and always be productive. And I think I've noticed it for myself when I've been doing school, because I've been doing Bible school. And so that is a time frame where it's like, in a week I have to write a paper and research all this stuff. But a lot of times I've found if I just kind of read everything I'm supposed to, and then I just let that sit and stir in me for a little bit, and then I reapproach it in like 3 days, it has just breathed and sort of worked itself out.
Right.
And I find that in art too, like you said, if I'm just living with a character, like you'll just discover those things. And so building in or giving ourselves permission to take that time as artists and just as people, because that's kind of the same way with our emotions too, and figuring out what's going on inside of us. We just need room to breathe. And I feel like,
and that's what people talk about meditation. That's my meditation. You know, a lot of people will sit there and just relax and do the breathing exercise, which they are really helpful. For me, meditation is, I can see a blank skateboard or canvas, and my mind is just meditating and just trying to find that, trying to grasp that idea. There's something there that I'm trying to grasp, and then suddenly it just kind of, you know, it's a spark. You know, and then you go with it, and then it's like, that was the right thing. And sometimes you just sketch. You know, there's every art is different. So there's people that will sketch until they get an idea. Especially if you're working for somebody. You have to do that. But if I'm not working for somebody, this is my own art. I will take the time. You know, that's the beauty of it. You know, I like how you say, let it breathe. For me, art is alive. So, it's and that's why I brought like real things. Because the digital world, sometimes you cannot touch that. You can't. So, but
I love that. So one of the things you brought is a skateboard that you've painted, and I've seen some of your stuff at the Stray too. That
I don't know if
we can hold it up. That are just these everyday objects that you've painted, which I always love to see. So when you get these things, is it like, are you like, oh, I proactively know I want to do something on a skateboard soon, or is it more just like you come across it and you do just kind of let it sit and see what comes to mind?
I love the whole skateboard culture since I was a kid. You know, the whole thing of riding. I can't do tricks. I ride longboard. But just, you know, watching skateboarders. You know, I grew up in Tony Hawk's age. We're all the same age. And just love the whole thing, that feeling. But, you know, when you see skateboard art, you know, it's kind of plain. One of the things, I think I was messing around with a skateboard one time with ink. And actually it was for one of the kids that I was working at Wedgewood. He wanted me to, because he knew I was an artist, to paint one of his skateboard. So I sanded the skateboard, and the skateboard, you know, that wood is different than the white paper. Right away, there's color in there. And the other thing I noticed with ink, it kind of looks like, you know, a tattoo in a way over his skin. And I didn't have to work that hard, you know. Well, I did, but by himself, when I started applying the ink, it's almost like it was happening by himself. You know, like the shading and all of that. It's like it was. It's like in the paper, you really had to be very clean about it. This one was, the wood was soaked in the ink, and then at the same time, I was using my fingers to push that in. So in a way, it felt like, I don't know, it was like becoming part of the skateboard. I like the whole idea that art has to look alive, you know, and somehow it was just giving more life to the skateboard, that wood. You can feel that wood, and, you know, I have to sand it, so there's a lot of like that process you have to touch, have to push with my finger, the ink. So there's a lot of intentional stuff happening that you don't see in digital art. You know, even though I went to school, I did a lot of digital art, and even though I don't have any tattoos, when I see tattoos, it's like the ink in the skin in here, it's similar. You know, there's something alive. And, you know, this one, yeah, it kind of worked the same way. I'll sand a skateboard and just let it sit there.
Yeah.
I have a fascination for birds, and different type of birds. Just the whole idea of flying. So I knew I wanted to include a bird, but that he was not the first one. I started drawing her first. And this is based on some of the stories that I'm working on. I like to write short stories.
Yeah.
And so for this one, it's kind of based on a story that I haven't finished writing yet, but I have drawings.
Yep.
And in these stories, humans become birds.
Okay.
You know, once I get it done, maybe I'll share it. But
Yeah.
So that was the whole idea. Become this. The whole idea. You know, you got the idea of angels, but this one is a little bit different. It's like humans. It's like I like all that kind of magical world, kind of like Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Narnia. Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
And in this world, at sunset, the birds will fly and their feathers will kind of cover all over the forest. And if you were around that, those feathers will kind of drop over you, and then you will become one of the birds. And you will fly with them. So it's all fantasy.
Yeah.
But I started working on doing the art first because I couldn't flesh out the story.
Yeah.
So she's one of the characters. She's one of the characters in the story. You know, and this is one of the birds that's flying. You have the feather here. So some of my arts are based on my own personal stories that I wrote.
Yep.
Or haven't finished yet, and people don't know that.
Right.
So I have a lot of art pieces that are connected. So actually, this one I had it at the Stray. There's like 3 graffiti drawings that I did, and they're all connected to the story.
Okay.
And those, actually, the idea became just having walked with my wife right at dusk, twilight. You know, everything looks a little bit blurry and kind of magical. That's why people, you know, they talk about twilight's kind of magical.
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife, we were going for walks, it's like, I wish I could draw this. How can I draw this? And I did some drawings where everything looks a little bit blurry and kind of like that twilight time where everything's possible. And a lot of people thought back in the days, it's like, that's a magical moment.
Yep.
And it is magical because the light will trick your eyes. You know, you think you see things, you know, like people, they thought they saw fairies back in the days. It's like, it was around twilight because your eyes were playing tricks.
Yeah.
But, you know, playing with the imagination, it's like, how can I actually draw that type of light? And I didn't bring one of those drawings, but I did some playing around with graffiti and charcoal where I faded a lot of the charcoal where kind of see a little bit blurry and kind of that twilight hour, you know, time of minutes. I don't know how long it lasts.
Right.
And I think I kind of capture it, but this story is happening during that time. Just that magical moment.
Yeah.
So that's the other way I approach art too. I will create stories in my mind, or I will write it down. Maybe I will never share the story. Right. But they're all connected. And this one is a series of stories that are all connected. And hopefully one day I'll make a book. And that will be a book more for adults. Yeah. And it will have illustrations like this. So, and there's a lot of books like that. They're like children books for adults, but they're illustrated books. Yeah. Graphic novel. But that was the idea of this one. It just kind of captures some of the characters. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you started off in music. What was it that got you interested in visual arts and painting and that world? When
I was in South America and Chile, in school, I went to a Christian school, and you know, you always have that art class, but your art teachers are not like super artists. They're art teachers, right? But we were lucky that when I moved to that school, the art teacher was an amazing artist. It was just, it blew my mind. And he just shared, like the first day, he showed a picture of a charcoal drawing of shoes, leather shoes. They looked so real. You could see the leather, almost touch the leather, and it was done with charcoal. And when I saw that, like the first time I saw like that type of art, you know, and I was just a kid. I was in 6th or 7th grade, maybe. And when I saw it, it's like I really want to learn how to draw like that.
Yeah.
And I think it was his class. You know, having a fine artist teaching you 6th, 7th grade, it make a huge difference. I mean, I was drawing before that. You know,
Right.
like I like to draw cartoon, comics in a way.
Yeah.
My mom and dad told me that I guess I won a competition when I was in 1st grade, which I don't remember. I have a vague memory. Maybe it's just an implanted memory when they tell you this story.
Yep.
So I always liked to draw, but I was not good at it.
Yeah.
But I think that class, just having a fine art artist teaching you and showing you like fine art, it made a huge difference. So that was one of the things. That's where I started. And then I started like trying to do portraits and things like that. And when we moved here, I was in high school. At the same time, I was able to take a lot of art classes in high school. The teachers were not fine artists, but they gave me the space to work on a lot of stuff. My classmates were great. And that was the thing. It's like always having the opportunity to meet people that actually were good. There was a comic artist in the school that he was doing stuff like DC.
Yeah. Wow.
And they were putting it in the school magazine. And then when I was looking at stuff, like I was like, oh my goodness, this dude's in high school. Yeah. And his stuff is like DC. I don't know where he's at now. He's probably working for like comics. Yeah. And I got to see his stuff like right there. That's, I think, and I keep bringing this back, you know, looking at art in the computer and your phone is not the same as looking at the real thing. Yeah. And if you're an artist or you want to be an artist, go and look at the real stuff. Look at the fine art. Go to a museum, see a Van Gogh, see a Salvador Dali, Rembrandt. When you see the real thing, your brain can see the difference. Yeah. And you can actually learn by looking at real painting. Looking at a digital picture, you don't get none of that information. You just see a flat image. And there's not much learning process. Your brain is actually getting more information from a real painting. Yeah. And I think that was one of your questions you had, like you emailed me. It's like, that's one of my biggest recommendations, is like go and see real art in person. You will see the difference. It actually will inspire you, and you can also learn from that if you take the time to look at it. Or hang out with artists. Yeah. They're better than you. Yeah. That I remember that was one of my art teachers, like always hang out with people that are better than you, because they will teach you. And I went to Kendall College, and I remember like my first year, I met this guy. I think he was like a year ahead, but his art was like way ahead of everybody in the class. He was an illustrator. And as soon as I started hanging out with him, just looking at his stuff, you know, and asking questions, the dude was super friendly, and he took the time to explain things. He was an animator too. He was a better animator than anybody on this teachers. And I was having that conversation with my wife today. It's like, that was my first year. When I was in my 3rd, 4th year, it was the opposite. The new students were coming to me. Yeah. And I was like, and when you realize that, like, so I am learning, you know, I am learning, because now, you know, we're turning things around. But I remember like my first year, like I was looking at the other students, like they're so good, you know, and I want to, and that's what some of the teachers say, like sit with them, ask them questions. And I was not a fine artist, so I was taking more of the illustration, so we're a little bit more open to criticism. Right. Like that's the first thing they teach you. You have to learn to be criticized. Yes. Fine artists, they have a hard time with that.
Because it's
so personal.
yeah.
So
It's what was in my heart. So
yeah.
yeah.
And that's one of the first thing I learned is like you gotta learn that because you will grow from that.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, it's kind of like, oh my goodness, you're destroying my heart.
I know.
But then you realize that's how you actually learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then, teachers taking apart your drawings is like, you got to work on this.
Yeah.
One of the things they did, it was amazing, is like, we did like live drawing, still live drawing, is they will sit where you're sitting, grab your drawing and compare it and tell you, okay, this is what you got to do. So they actually sit where you're sitting.
Yeah. And see the angle and
The angle.
perspective. Yeah.
But and then they'll actually will show you how to fix it. But when you're seeing that, somebody's actually guiding you.
Yeah.
And the teacher will tell you sometimes you have to learn how to see. It's like the first year is you have to learn what you're looking at. But sometimes you don't know what to look the right angles or where to look. Because proportions were completely off.
Yeah.
At the beginning, drawings will take me forever.
Yeah.
I remember like one time they asked us to draw like objects or toys, and I have some toys that I was drawing, and because they're 3D, it's hard to draw something that's in front of you as 3D to 2D paper.
Yeah.
It took me 2-3 days, and nowadays I can do that in like half hour, 15 minutes. Because your brain learn. But that lesson of teachers sitting where you're sitting and guiding you is kind of like, that walking with you, kind of going back to all this things with mental health. Like, it's very important. All that stuff is like real important. Like, somebody wants to be a better artist. It's like you actually, if you want a formal education, if you can afford it, do it. If you cannot afford it, hang out with artists.
Yeah.
Because they will sit with you and they will show you how to do things. So,
And I love that idea of the first year you're just learning to see, which again, I feel like connects back to what we were saying about giving it space to breathe, letting it be slow. But I feel like for every art, like I think about myself as an actor, and early on, I'm like, I just want to make people cry. If I could make an audience member cry, then that's like, I'm winning. And it's like, okay, but before you do that, you have to like, learn how to just understand people and listen to the other actors on stage.
And see the other actors.
And it's just this slow untangling process that initially you're like, but I want to do like the cool thing,
Right.
But giving yourself that time to just learn to see the world around you and slow down and develop.
Be patient.
Yeah. Is so important for artists and people in general, and I always have to relearn that. I feel like because I always want to hurry up. But
think about Jesus. 33 years. He was a carpenter.
Yeah.
He didn't come to this world to be a carpenter.
Yeah.
So he took his time. So even that's like the biggest example of to be patient.
Yeah.
It's like when as soon as you say that, that came to my mind. It's like 33 years. Van Gogh started painting when he was an adult.
Yeah.
But I love the whole idea of acting too. Like when I was a kid too, I love all that. I couldn't memorize lines, so
Yeah.
But you have to be patient. You have to take the time. The other thing is like if you want to be a better artist, and that was one of the questions you emailed me, is anybody can be an artist. The biggest difference between a good artist and a so-so artist is how much time you spend drawing. People are not willing to do the work.
Yeah.
So, first 2 years in school, the amount of drawing that we did, it was insane. I never drew so much in my life. In a week, I have to do like, I don't know how many drawings that they will tell you like, okay, I want you to do sketches per day, about 20.
Yeah.
And then you do finished drawing about 2. And then you're doing over 100 drawings a week.
Yeah.
Or more. That process, your hand is working. Your brain is working. And suddenly, second year, it clicks. It's almost like all those wheels were separated, and that learning process and that coming together, and suddenly it just clicks. But you have to put the work. You have to actually do the work. That's the. A lot of people tell me like, I don't know how to draw. I'm never gonna be a good artist. How many drawings have you done in your life?
Yeah.
If you haven't done over 100, 1,000, yes, you have to do the work.
Yeah.
And that's with everything in life. If you want to be good at it, you actually have to do the work. And a lot of people, a lot of new artists, they give up too quick.
Yeah.
Well, I did 5 drawings. I'm not good at it. 5. You.
Yeah.
After you do 100 or 200, maybe.
Yeah.
But you still gotta keep going. Any type of art, you have to practice. If you're a musician, how many hours you gotta put to be a musician? I'm a guitar player. I used to spend when I was younger, I don't know how many hours a day playing the guitar.
Yeah.
Because I loved it so much. But people ask me why you became so good at guitar.
Yeah.
Because I play like 5, 6, 7 hours a day.
Yep.
It's the same with art. Most people don't want to spend that amount of time because I guess you have to be passionate about it. But if you want to be an artist, do the work. I mean, I guarantee if I'm looking at a picture over there beside Captain America. Is that a kid's drawing?
What is it?
It's a little picture in the blue.
I'm gonna stand up.
It's a stick figure.
So you can see it. Oh, this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So story
drew
behind
that?
this. It's actually Hitler, and there's a background to that. So I have. My wife drew that. She actually is a good drawer, but she drew me a little stick figure Hitler because I have an action figure of the original like Captain America costume, and in his first cover, he's punching Hitler. So when I was setting this all up, I like put him in the punching pose, and I was like, I don't have a Hitler action figure though for him to punch. That is funny. So she drew that.
Yeah. But I want to use that example. Like, if you ask somebody to draw like an adult and they draw like it looks like a kid's drawing, that's the age they stop drawing. It doesn't get better.
Yeah.
So, and I done that experiment with people like they. So I taught a few classes. I'm not professionally trained to teach, but people ask me to teach like drawing classes. Yeah. And people start drawing. It's like, and then you can see the drawing. Okay, it looks like probably you stopped when you were 8, or you were 10, or you were 5. When was the last time you drew? Yeah. If you remember when you were a kid, you probably used to draw. And at a certain age, you stop. Yeah. And that's when. If you start drawing now, you're going to draw exactly the same when you stop.
That is interesting. I'm thinking back, I just did Godspell, and there was a couple, like, stage pictures that I had so specifically in my brain that I wanted to try and draw them. And I hadn't drawn in a little while, but I used to, like, I loved superheroes, so my brother and I would draw, like, comic books and superheroes all the time and different things. And then eventually I was focusing on other things, and I didn't do it as much. But I was, like, remembering, and I was like, oh, I'm enjoying this. This is fun. But it was, like, it did look exactly like, and I don't know, I was probably, like, late middle school or junior high or something. Yeah. But I'm like, yeah, that would map like totally to exactly where my skill level was.
Stop. Yeah. That's when it stopped. So yeah, if you keep going, it gets better. Yeah. So while Leonardo da Vinci drawing looked like a master, he never stopped. And the amount of drawing he did, it was ridiculous. Yeah. You know, if you think about it, I mean, any of the famous artists, if you start looking at how many drawings they did, that amount is ridiculous. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And I was telling my wife, it's like, I have a horrible memory. I don't keep track of my art. I have given away a lot of art. I have sold art. I forgot what I'd done. Yeah. And I want to start documenting because I see like in writing, oh, so-and-so made 100,000 drawings. I'm like, I have no idea how many done. Yeah. Because I lost track. But I want to start like putting it in the book, like maybe take a Polaroid picture. I drew this. I give it to so and so. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, it is important to whatever you like to master, whatever the art is. You actually have to work on it. Yeah, really put the work. I mean, it is possible. Anybody can draw. It's just how much amount you want to put to it. Yeah. So if you want to draw like when you were 10. Yes, if you stop at 10, that's how it's going to stay. But if you're going to keep going and you want to draw like you went to college, to an art school, yeah. I wasn't that good when I entered Kendall College. My skill level was probably like a high school, you know? because I was still drawing
Yeah.
high school, and then it made a huge leap from my first year to the fourth year. That training and amount of work you have to do, it is worth it. To me, it was worth it.
Yeah.
Because even if I don't have a job, like I would love to work for like DC or Marvel, but I still have to do a lot of my art. Like I make my own books, I do my own designs, I create work for people.
Yeah.
I create a lot of work for the church. You know, I still use my skills, and I went to school for that.
Yeah.
Not for my own personal things. It's to actually use it in every aspect of my life. So, if you can afford, formal education, I highly recommend it. If you can, hang out with artists. They're better than you.
Yeah.
You're always gonna learn. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're getting close to our time here. So the last question, we've been talking about resources for people growing as artists. As far as people's faith, do you have resources or things you would recommend for them to deepen or grow in their Christian faith?
A lot of people probably know this one. And this is related to a lot of the purpose-driven life.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people probably read it. People probably read it and then forgot about it. But this is, I remember reading it and then completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
We used it in one of the programs with suicide ideation.
Okay.
It was hard because it was not a Christian program.
Right.
So, but I still used it, and I bought copies and left it around so people want to read it. But the big question, what on earth am I here for? Asking those questions of your purpose in life is very important.
Yeah.
And this is a great book. I mean, you can use it to study, with somebody else or a group. I think this book is great, not to read it by yourself, but to read it in a group.
Yeah.
And learn from each other. Proverbs 11:28 right here says, "A life devoted to things is a dead life. A stump, a God-shaped life is a flourishing tree." So just that verse right there, it's like that's the purpose. You have to have a purpose in your life.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to take that time to find a purpose. It can take you your whole life.
Yeah.
But you have to be looking for that purpose. And sometimes, even if we relate this to art, if you don't know what your purpose is, it's hang out with people.
Yeah.
That maybe they have a little bit of idea what their purpose is, or talk about it. Same principles. Hang out with somebody, with another artist.
Yeah.
Hang out with another Christian. Same principles. Like you might find a purpose.
Yeah.
In life. This is a great book, to start reflecting on that. If you feel you don't have a purpose in life.
Yeah.
And this is going to go back to the Bible too. So it's good. Sometimes we lose that. Like, okay, I have the Bible. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
What book should I read? Sometimes you need another guy to guide you to the Bible.
Yes.
I think this is a great one. This one is, from my point of view, it's related to a lot of the mental health and also Christianism. So it's kind of it's related a lot. I used this in the suicide ideation program. I thought it was great. I used it at church. I led a small group with this, and it was an easy way to start communicating with people because I think we all trying to find that purpose in life. But and somebody, I don't know who posted it in Instagram, it's like the whole thing about Jesus, that he didn't come to this world to be a carpenter. What is his real purpose in life?
Yeah.
He came to this world to be a savior.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we have jobs that are not our purpose. That's part of our life.
Yeah.
But what are we here for? Maybe I'm not here to be an artist. Maybe maybe something deeper. So I'm still searching, purpose, and I think this also helps with that guy, because if we're mixing, mental health, there's good days, bad day. Depression is real. Having a purpose or trying to find a purpose, or maybe, you know, you talk about seasons, like what are you doing during this year? What is your purpose this year? Maybe you don't have to think about your full life.
Yeah.
What is your purpose this year? And kind of set that goal. You know, that's going to be very helpful, like to keep pushing, you know.
Yeah.
But also, you know, having that guy from God, like, okay, how can I accomplish this purpose? Is that the same purpose God is giving you, though? Because sometimes we're trying to, you know,
we try and manipulate it a certain way.
Manipulate our way because I like doing this.
Yep.
Sometimes your purpose is something you don't like doing. So
yeah.
So this is one of the I will say I'll recommend, and I don't want to forget about this one.
Yes.
If you ever want to write a children's book, this is a great one too. Yeah.
I think mine died.
Children's books are very complicated. It's a lot of work. You would think like writing a novel is a lot of work. Children's books are way more complicated because you have to think about, this is for a kid, and we are an adult.
Yep.
This one will give you a step-by-step. My friend Jeff Villy, he researched different book and found this lady in the internet. And this book actually did all the homework for us, like how to go step-by-step, how to publish a book.
That's awesome.
Without like making all the mistakes you have to make. So it's a great book.
Yeah.
It will save you time.
That's awesome.
We spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do it, and then when he found the book and we started reading the book, like, here it is.
Yeah, that's
Somebody
great.
actually knows the steps. And it's very, very, very easy to follow.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a children's book or a book, I recommend for people who want to write a book, this one works too. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. This has been a really lovely discussion.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
All right.